in the normal course of events. That's just basically like a ghost. When you're looking at a ghostly figure, most of them don't look solid because they're operating just outside of your frequency, just enough for you to perceive something, but not enough for them to appear to be have solidity. This is very similar to having a radio and it not quite being on the station. You can hear the station, but there's what we call interference, and it's not sharp. Visually, that's what's happening when people see these ghostly, ethereal-type figures. So shape-shifting is not the movement from a dense physical body to a dense physical body. It would appear from the endless research that I've done and people I've talked to all over the world and all the rest of it put together, my own experiences sometimes, that what we're looking at are these hybrid bloodlines. Because of the hybrid nature of the DNA, the software program, they have a vibrational sympathy with that which interbred with them. And this doesn't have to be physical interbreeding either, as I'll come to. And so these bloodlines can be, quote, possessed, their emotional, mental faculties taken over much more easily than the general run of the population does not have that hybrid DNA, thus that vibrational sympathy, compatibility between the two energy fields. So what they're doing in effect is using the secret society network they've set up to manipulate these bodies into power, but in doing so, they're putting themselves into power because they're controlling the mental and emotional processes of these vehicles. Now, when we look at, say that's a major politician or something, when we look at him with our five-sense sight, we are going to decode that level of him that is operating with invisible light. So what do we see? We see a human. But behind him, just outside of that frequency range, we'd see something very different. And I've met endless people who've seen it, who do have that ability to move their visual frequency range further than the norm. So what is happening is, with shape-shifting, or one way that it's happening, is sometimes that energy field just outside of visible light moves in to that frequency range. It sometimes happens when this vehicle is going through great emotional turmoil. I've had that story told to me many times when people have seen this, the circumstances surrounding it. And at that point, this energy field enters visible light and becomes the prime forward energy field. And then it goes back again. To the observer, who is decoding that energy field through the brain and turning it into a physical experience, what he observes only in his head is human, non-human, human. Did you see that? But it wasn't physical. It was a change in the decoding of the brain of the energy field it's observing. And this interbreeding can happen without coming into the physical, because these are energy fields, and these energy fields can send down genetic codes down into this reality. It's horrible to think about, but I've talked to a number of people around the world, women, who've been in captivity in places like the Mormon network in Salt Lake City, who have been taking part in rituals, obviously forced to take part, who are being raped on sacrificial altars under the Mormon church, other places too, and other organizations, but I'm just thinking of one in particular. And she told me, and the same story I've heard elsewhere, she looked up while this rape's going on, and around the rapist was this ethereal, non-human figure. Through this energy connection, things can be sent through to affect the genetics, the software program of the child that results from that situation. Because to them, like I say, they know it's a computer, and they know the computer software can dictate behavior and perception, and they want puppets. It may sound strange, but I feel for a lot of these people in power on the human level because they're just puppets themselves, like bloody robots. Here you go. A lot of these people are not in control of their own perception. And this is why, what they do a lot is they'll target someone. What they want to know is who's got the bloodline and who hasn't. Because this bloodline genetics won't manifest itself in cold-blooded behavior and all the rest of it that we see unless those codes are open. It's like having a computer. It's got lots of codes, but unless you open them, it doesn't affect the computer screen. In other words, the reality of the computer. You have to open it. And what they do is target a lot of these people this is why they want a DNA database. They want to know who's got it and who hasn't. And that gives them, obviously, a great way of finding out. And then they target these people, and suddenly these people who know nothing about it, they're suddenly sponsored by very powerful people, and they become big in politics and law and all the rest of it. And through that, they get pulled into the secret society network, and they go through these rituals, and they think it's just some, ancient ritual, it's just tradition. They don't realize that what these rituals are designed to do is to affect them genetically to open these codes. And how that manifests itself in experience is of seeing people who, for instance, came into politics with a good intent to try to make a positive contribution, and they end up, after a while, being the absolute epitome of everything they came into politics to challenge, because there's been a process of personality takeover. It's not always for that reason, but that's one of them. So what we're looking at, I would suggest, but people make of it what they will, are fields where we decode the human one, but behind it is another one that looks anything but human. And someone sent me this picture. I don't know who it's of, but he's got very reptilian-type eyes. And a friend of mine has been working recently with someone who's been involved in a big iris scanning technological program. Not something I agree with, I have to say, iris scanning, but what he found, and he's into none of this stuff, what he found as these people looked very closely at 2,300 eyes, to their amazement, in his estimation, about 4% of the eyes they looked at were of reptilian type and appearance. All over the internet, people have started talking about this now, and these pictures are circulating. This might be probably is just a trick of the light, but it's very symbolic of what we're looking at. That was on the front of the 14 Times, taking the piss out of me. I thought, thank you very much. Nice picture. I'll have that. Very symbolic. And it's all these other people and all that stuff. And another thing that you find is a number of therapists have sent me pictures. This is a common theme. Therapists working with satanically abused people, trying to get their minds back after all this abuse, and sexually abused people that have been in these mind control projects. And it's a very consistent theme that when these people who've been victims of this, they use a lot of drawing to try to draw out their memories. Again and again, what they draw are people with reptilian eyes. These are actually drawn by a satanically abused person, and these were sent to me with their permission by their therapist. Again,